So here we go. The 5 main points that we're going to take a peek at today. We're going to just take a good look at what is CFS. We're going to take a look at the levels of severity because they vary. We'll talk about that. There is no known cure. That's kind of part where it gets a little bit heavy, but that doesn't mean that people haven't gotten past chronic fatigue syndrome. It's just that within the confines and the constraints of the medical community, they don't know, and we'll talk again more about this, but they don't really know what all the causes of chronic fatigue syndrome are. So if you don't really have the cause, it's really hard to cure something when you don't know what's causing it. So, but again, we'll talk more about that. We'll scratch that when we get there. So, and we're going to spend just a little bit of time about, so like, what are some of the potential compounding health challenges from having chronic fatigue syndrome, and why are there potential compounding health challenges having CFS? Meaning, so you have chronic fatigue syndrome, and so does that like lead to other things? And the answer to that question is yes, it can. And what can we do about it? So we'll talk about that. And then additionally, what are some treatment options for beautiful souls who are in fact living with chronic fatigue syndrome? So let's get into it. So what is CFS? Well, CFS, or as it has been updated with fancy medical names since I was first diagnosed. When I first was diagnosed, it was just chronic fatigue syndrome. And in fact, most people were incredibly dismissive of it at the time. It's like, oh, you're just tired all the time. It's like, well, thank you for your compassion. But since I was diagnosed, it has now been renamed MECFS, which is myalgic encephalomyelitis. Mouthful there, right? Myalgic encephalomyelitis, or chronic fatigue syndrome. So again, the myalgic is really easy, but it's the encephalomyelitis that is a mouthful. So basically, unless you really want to sound super fancy, you can just say chronic fatigue syndrome. Or if you want to sound more serious about it, I have myalgic encephalomyelitis. It's up to you. And the reality of it is that chronic fatigue syndrome is very often a very brutal beast. Hate to say it, but it's true. It will impact things. It will change the way you live. It just does. So most medical sources cite severe tiredness as a main symptom. And I just think this is hilarious personally. I laugh at this. And the reason why I laugh at this is because I have been severely tired. And CFS, chronic fatigue syndrome, is a whole nother beast. When you are severely tired, you can go to sleep. And then you wake up and you're like, gosh, I feel so much better. A good sleep fixes extreme tired. With CFS, waking up rested is not something that happens reliably or regularly or for stretches of time, sometimes not at all. So that's a huge, huge thing. Sometimes you sleep and you sleep and you sleep, or you have insomnia along with it and you don't sleep, but then you're exhausted all the time. It doesn't matter, whatever it is. You go to sleep, and that idea of waking up and being like, I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and all the things, I am going to go and tackle life. You don't get the benefit of that wellness with CFS, at least not reliably or regularly. It also causes problems concentrating and thinking. One of the reasons why you're seeing some slides to support what I'm doing is I don't want to have to try to remember all of this because one, sometimes I have to wait a while to be able to, like I might be building the video talk, but it might take me a little while to get to the part to where I can record it and give you the video that goes along with it. And in doing so, I may forget everything, or if I'm tired or a little bit brain foggy and I can't concentrate, I don't want to lose my train of thought. And then it be not a very helpful video. So the inability to concentrate and trouble thinking goes along with chronic fatigue syndrome as a fairly regular symptom. But there's other symptoms that go along with it, and that they are the following, but not limited to. I do want to say that these are not all the symptoms, but one, you can have pain, and it can be anywhere in your body, but you can just be like, oh, I'm achy today. I hurt this. Oh, I have whatever. Your joints ache. Things happen, and that is very much a part of chronic fatigue syndrome. Insomnia, which is just frustrating and counterproductive. If it isn't bad enough already that you go to sleep when you finally sleep, and you might sleep and sleep and sleep and sleep, but not wake up and feel rested, the fact that you can then suffer from insomnia and then not be able to sleep. Are you kidding me? Weakness. That is another symptom that's very common, because your body just isn't restoring the way that it should. So you can feel very weak, wobbly, dizzy, lightheaded. When you do sleep, you might have vivid dreaming, night terrors even, but vivid dreaming is how they like to put it, and I have little of all of that. Restless legs, and nighttime muscle spasms. Really, really, really hate these, because, so say for instance you've been having insomnia, but you've been laying around because you're too tired and too weak and too achy to move, and so you just kind of lay around, and then next thing you know, your body starts to twitch, or your legs, and it's not just like twitching, it's painful, it hurts, and it's distracting. And it's, for me, it always starts to happen right when I'm finally starting to fall asleep, and then I can't fall asleep because now I'm in pain and twitching. So I get up and I have to do some gentle yoga. I have to work my legs. Otherwise, it is a downward spiral. So restless legs and nighttime muscle spasms. And then there are other symptoms as well. And again, if you have specific symptoms and you're interested in me trying to talk about them, if I've had experience with them, I would be happy to do so. Just comment in the comment section and I'll get on that. But so every person experiences chronic fatigue syndrome differently. So, which also makes it difficult for medical practitioners and medical science to do a lot with, because everybody's a little bit different. It's because our bodies are all different. No two bodies are built the same. And so, it's just a complicating factor. So what does CFS really feel like? And so let's just take a little trip back to that severe tiredness. And I find this characterization, I just find it completely and entirely severely lacking. And over the years, I have tried to explain what I experienced to my doctors, to my family, to my friends, and I can assure you that the only one who remotely comes close to really understanding is my husband, because he lives with me and he helps me navigate, and he sees me dealing with this, and he's worked with me through this. And it's a beast for over a decade. And for instance, I had some really, really bad years kind of at the beginning, where I was incredibly bedridden, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. But for bedridden, and I mean, I'm not kidding. Like, this isn't like, oh, you've got like a little flu and you're just kind of like, oh, I can't get out of bed. Like, he would have to come and help me. I would be too weak. He would have to put my arms around his neck and help me sit up, stand up. He would have to help me get into the bathroom. Thank God those days are behind me, and hopefully they'll stay behind me forever and ever. Hopefully I've made enough strides in my wellness and healing that I'll never see those kinds of days again. But so it can be pretty rough. And he's the only one who's ever seen that, and people just don't really understand. My moment of levity. I didn't name this channel Moaning Zombie for nothing. It has a purpose there. So in this idea of trying to understand it. So say, for instance, you're a person who's not suffering from chronic fatigue syndrome, or you've got something going on and you're trying to figure out, do I have chronic fatigue syndrome? By the way, if that's you, please do see your doctor. Don't let this be the diagnostic tool that you want to make your measurement by. But if you're looking for characterization to just kind of better understand the experience of at least one person with chronic fatigue syndrome, then we move on and you'll hear this. So this is what I tell my people. Imagine the worst flu you have ever gotten. And I know that this also varies from people to people. Like I've known people who have a flu and they're like, oh yeah, achoo, I have the flu, I'm a little sick to my stomach or something like that. But just imagine, and then other people are just like, I'm down and out for weeks. I'm in that latter category. But so think about the worst flu you've ever had, and think about how, and I'm just going to kind of read this so I don't go off track too much. But so think about how you were so tired that you just could not get out of bed. You just slept and you slept and it was beyond your control while your body did its fighting. Maybe a friend brought you some soup to sip, and maybe a loved one helped you prop up on some pillows so you could mind-numbingly watch a movie. You probably ached deep in your bones. For me, that always happens in the knees or some other body parts, perhaps. You were probably super weak, maybe even barely able to walk or barely able to get to the bathroom. Maybe you weren't that bad. But the fatigue, that foggy brain, those pains and aches and the weakness, mind you, in my experience, doesn't really come with a fever. I don't get the nauseousness or anything like that. This is more like just that beat down, drained, dragged out, too weak to move, bleh, lump of bleh, that feeling. And I would say that if you've experienced that, then it's close to building some empathy, but it doesn't even come close to what I have experienced with chronic fatigue syndrome. So we use that as a base point and then just say, yeah, now imagine that really super pumped up and terrible. So to give you a for instance, I had years, kind of referring back to those previous years, I had years where I slept for hours and hours beyond what one would consider a normal sleep. From my memory, it has been years, but from my memory, my longest and worst sleep was a 32-hour long sleep. But more commonly, what I got was, I remember that there was a time when I slept for 27 hours straight. And then I woke up for 3 hours, and then I was exhausted and I had to go right back to sleep. So I ate, I did the basics of self-care, I got a shower, went to the bathroom, hydrated, and then I went back to sleep for 21 hours. And that became like a rinse and repeat kind of scenario. And what I don't have written here, but what I'll share with you, is that I found that at that particular period of time, I would have about 25 to 26 days out of a month where I felt just supremely terrible. And then I would get 4, 5, 6 days, maybe a week, where I would have more energy and more ability, and that lasted. Thank goodness that was only for a few years. That was maybe 3 or 4 years of my experience, and so I dug in, and I've been really working on my wellness and my healing ever since, because that was just horrific. And so, excuse me. So I don't have those kinds of times anymore. And if you are there and you feel that way, I would say definitely there is so much hope. I still have some times when I'm going through experiences like that, but even now, I'm kind of like my worst days, they are nowhere near what that was. Thank goodness. That was the most extreme. And even on my most extreme chronic fatigue days, I'm not that bad anymore. Yay! So there is hope.